Welcome into the process. I am Pat Curran. Today's guest is one of the best defensive line coaches in the country, Deonte Gibson. He is the defensive tackles coach at Wyoming. Just got there a couple months ago from Air Force, where he was the defensive ends coach. For that, coached defensive line at Youngstown State, outside backers at Akron, and was a GA at his alma mater, Northwestern. In this episode, we discuss his process, what it looks like in the offseason right now, in season, recruiting, how he gets better as a coach, and how he prepares his players on the daily to get better themselves. Really good episode. I appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me today. I know it's always a busy time of year. I was going to say it's a busy time of year, but it is always consistently a busy time of the year. But let's just start here with your coaching philosophy and how you approach coaching on the daily. Kind of walk us through that.
So a lot of the things that I've kind of come up with over the years kind of evolved far as like how I want to run the meetings, how I want to, interact on the field with guys, how I want to set up individual. But the one foundational piece for me has always been where I've learned from my mentors is to be super player centric. So my philosophy is to make life not necessarily as easy, but to make the most sense for those guys. So anything that I do and how I approach the way that I'm teaching in meetings, how I'm cutting up tape to make sure the guys can understand it, how I'm giving out installs and individual, I want it to be super practical so that the players can like transfer any level of their understanding of football coupled with my teaching to make it the most efficient for them when they play the game. So really my philosophy revolves around making life make the most sense for the players to be successful.
I'm with it. You said that's evolved over the years. Why has it, or what was it before? Like some of those things, obviously it's always been what you said, but how have those things evolved and what are those things that have changed from, when you started 8, 9 years ago?
I think sometimes it's like when you first start out, I think you feel like you have to be the smartest coach, or some people go the route of being super schematic. Like I have to make sure I know the most about football to show that I'm an expert in actual knowledge base of the game. Other guys lean towards hey, I'm gonna have the most drills possible to keep the guys stimulated, get them going,
Yeah.
teach them as many different mechanics as they can. And I would say I was probably on the higher end of trying to be like as qualified of a D-line coach as I could because I was probably from my oldest player, my first position job ever, I think I was about 3 years older than them. So I never wanted them to feel like, all right, this dude doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think that was a level of insecurity as a young coach that I really got rid of fairly fast because I realized those guys did not care how old I was. Just make sure you get me what I need for me to be successful. And then as I got a little more into it, it was like, hey, I'm on a staff with more veteran coaches. So I got to show that I actually know how to keep up schematically and understanding my football IQ is super important to make sure the guys understand, too, that I'm really sound in there and my drills make sense along with my IQ. And it was just, it became a super unnecessary. And I felt like a lot of the things I was doing sounded and looked really good in the interview, but wasn't super practical. And so I kind of evolved away from that fairly early in my career, which I was happy about. And I was glad I went through those stages because it helped me find myself as a coach.
Sure, sure. And everybody should be doing that over 8, 9 years. You evolve and find yourself as a coach. When you're 23, 24, 25, like you're not the same human you are when you're in your 30s. Hopefully, not at least.
Yeah, you gotta
So,
hope.
yeah, right. So in your position right now, you've been there just about 2 months, not quite two
Yeah.
months. A position a lot of coaches in right now, in transition, you move from one job to another, and now you've got to come in and like you're talking about the players and being player centric, and now you've got to learn these guys, prepare for spring ball, and start to teach them exactly the way you want them taught. As you're learning them, you're learning the defense, you're getting settled in a house, you're having a baby, like all these other things are going on. So where are you guys at right now? Like, what do you guys do? You guys in winter conditioning still? What are you guys doing? When does spring ball start? And then what are you able to do with your guys? And how are you building that relationship right now as we speak?
So the biggest thing for me is just being present. And so whenever there's a workout, just being around, being in front of the guys, showing that I'm right there coaching them up on them, trying to get them to hold up to a higher standard, the highest standard possible, and then obviously the standard within the program. So I think just visibility is important early, especially since I took the job and then went on the road immediately. And so I met the guys for like sparingly over a 3, 4 week span. So now that I've been in office more, I've been more more keen on being at the workouts, having the guys come up, hey, come see me, let's talk academics, and let's just shoot the breeze about anything. Really, just kind of giving them a little bit of a feel of who I am and what I represent as a person, as well as when we have those opportunities to go over individual, which we have some individual work post workouts where we can get after, and then I can show them who I am as a coach. And actually, this week is the big plan is to have them over now that I got some things settled in the house to, come fellowship a little bit, come get a free meal and just hang out. Just again, get with me outside the confines of the job because they'll see me, as a coach 80% of the time. So that 20% I feel like is super critical to make the 80 make sense. So we'll have the guys over, hang out and just, really just try to enjoy each other's company and get a chance to get to know each other more than anything.
Sure. Are you cooking or are you just buying something?
So I'm still in the process of figuring out, do I want to just grill out? And so that depends on the day in which we decide to have the guys over. So if I can get them on a weekend, then I'll grill out myself. If I can't, I'll still probably cook, but it probably won't be as extensive because the turnaround in a weekday. So
I'm with you. I'm with you. Just curious
yeah,
if you cooked or not in general. Cool.
yeah.
As far as all right, so now as you prep for spring ball, and you head to spring ball, what are things you're working on in the daily in spring ball? And I'm not talking like drills per se, but what things are you doing with your guys to help them get better every single day of practice, whether it's actually at practice, or as the guys come in and they're watching film, or you guys are in team meetings, that sort of stuff.
So I mean, I think like I kind of hit it on the being visible more than anything.
Yeah.
I dedicate times for the first few days out of the week just to talk academics, but really for me that's my opening just to get to know them more than anything, to figure out how they think, how they process their day, how they set up their day, and I kind of base a lot of that superficially on just how they do handle themselves academically. I think I had a coach I worked with, Jesse Walton, had this sign: how you do anything is how you do everything. I know every coach in the country says it, but I remember he had it on his office. I used to mess with it all the time, and I know he's going to remember it and want to hate me for it. But I think that's important. That's something I really took true to how coaches. If guys are struggling academically, I can't imagine when we really need them in the fourth quarter, they're going to be worth a damn because every aspect of their life isn't aligned. So kind of really work on that alignment now before we get into some real football where honestly, this is where they've come to do. So we'll work over academics. We'll just talk about what they got going on socially. If they're involved in anything, trying to, really try to get involved in that as well. I got a couple guys that I've been recruiting previously that were a part of theater. And so like going to their plays. And so really, I
Yeah.
think hitting on visibility is huge right now before we actually get to real football.
Yeah. What once you get to real football, what does that look like? How are you helping them prepare differently than other guys around the country are?
So I have a couple hit tapes that I used to do in the off season. Of players that every guy wants to be Aaron Donald, every guy wants to be Miles Garrett, but they're one of one. So there's a bunch of players in the NFL again that are elite players but have traits similar to our guys. So I try to cut up tape and show like, okay, this is how they interact or do some of their schematic things from an upfront perspective so that you can kind of emulate slash you've already been doing, but this is them doing it at a higher clip. The other part of it is just showing them, which I'm in the process now of going through the tape from last season. Obviously, I didn't coach them, but there's some schematic things that we've done previously and things that I've done previously that are going to get married, and I'm going to show them doing things the right way, like kind of how it's laid out in detail, and also the way in which I intend them to kind of execute those deals. So creating cut-ups, call them hit tapes of them going through their progression of the season. So that you can show like, okay, as we prepare for spring ball, this is where we need to get to, slash, this is where you probably already were. So you're on the right track, or maybe you are on the right track, and this is what we got to do to improve. And kind of marrying that up with some of my old tapes so that it makes sense for them.
Got you. Cool. I like it. Once we hit summer, what do you feel is like super important for you to get accomplished for your guys? As a team, obviously everyone's trying to get stronger, faster, culture building, all that sort of stuff. But what do you focus on and what do you have your guys do specifically in the summer to prep?
I, I think getting a routine, an actual routine of development for themselves, whether it's I think just simply crafting out a in-season routine starts in the summer. So if you got to wake up, if we have a 7 a.m. meeting, you got to wake up at maybe 5:15. Start to wake yourself up a little bit earlier, and then start to get your extra work in the training room. Like starting to build and craft that professional schedule. More than anything is what the summer's built for, to kind of lay out, okay, what makes sense for me to get me prepared to execute the daily responsibility. And so really helping those guys start to craft that routine. The other part of it is getting those guys enough time to work together on some of the stuff that they'll see once we get to fall camp. And that's really just helping out the incoming freshmen, or if we have a new transfer, getting those guys integrated into what it looks like to be a part of the room. It's really the hugest thing, I think, in the summer. If you can really start to craft that routine down, I think that's probably the most imperative thing.
Yeah. What does your room look like this year compared to last year? Like young guys, transfers, how many guys are back that were in that room last year, that sort of thing.
I think it's a good mix of it's probably honestly it's more guys that were here before than weren't. So it's probably, I want to say about not probably 80% of guys that were here last year are still here.
Yeah.
And then only one transfer, and then there's some incoming freshmen coming in. So feel really good about the room. There was a lot of talent that I got to see firsthand as the opponent. Watch them kind of get after us a little bit,
Yeah.
and also just some of the things I watched on tape. There's a lot of young talent that was just, they just had to go through they had to go through the tough grunt of being a D lineman at the Division I level. So you got knocked around a little bit, made some plays a little bit, just finding a level of consistency. And so now some of those guys are entering their second year playing. We got some old guys that have played ball before. So it's a nice mix of guys that I'm really excited to coach.
Good. So that's a, group. You don't have that, especially at the group of five level, that much cohesion where a bunch of guys are back. And of course, you're going to throw in some transfers and some freshmen and whatnot, but to have 90% of your room backs, big time stuff, especially for a new coach coming in. What are
Absolutely.
you doing this offseason yourself to get better as a coach?
Oh man, I've gone through some of my old tapes and some of my old individual, and I've gone and looked and seen like, okay, this drill looks really, really cool on tape, but this has no real application in the game. So we just wasted 5 minutes.
Hmm.
We got better. I think we got better athletically, and we got some work in, but it wasn't targeted. So really going through some of the individual I've done previously is huge for me. Creating a drill menu, making sure it's consistent. So we've been going through drills these last few weeks, and so every day I craft out what we've done and kind of quality control how the drill looked and how the guys executed and how they took to it, and then modify the drill as well. That's some of the things I've looked at. Upcoming as we get into spring ball, I'm going to look at a couple other defensive lines that coaches that I've actually seen through the years that have done a really good job, and kind of just see what they've done up front schematically from a stunts perspective, or just how they play certain blocks, just to really quality control what I'm doing in regards to what's been really successful. I mean, I think it's important to be an individual coach and do what you do and be proud of how you coach your guys. But at the same time, there is a lot of success elsewhere, and so really kind of marrying those thoughts is huge for me. So right now, the biggest thing is I've been kind of checking my own room a little bit, cleaning up my own room, figuring out what I've been teaching and if it's been, honestly, has it been effective. And so there's some things
Sure.
I've already thrown out already, and some things I've added, and yeah, it's been exciting. You gotta put that that mirror to yourself a little bit and kind of humble yourself.
That can be tough to do, and most guys don't like to do it. The humble piece of it, and kind of look back. Hey, that wasn't
Yeah.
as effective as it could have been. That's 5 minutes. That's a key 5 minutes we have, and it wasn't. Let me take that out. And a lot of guys kind of just do the same old thing year in year out too. So credit to you for doing that. Once you get into season, actually no. Let me pause there. As far as off season, you talk about creating a routine for your players. What does a routine look like for you? And I know every day is different, spring ball, recruiting, that sort of thing. But what do you try to get accomplished in a day for yourself as the coach?
So what I want to try to do every day, and I've been doing it since I've been here, try to work out every morning. Start the day with a workout, and really that helps jumpstart the day because it's something, quite honestly, a lot of people don't feel like doing. I can get that
Yeah.
extra hour of sleep or extra 40 minutes of sleep, but waking up, jumpstarting my day, taking care of myself is important. Then from there, just getting as much time as I can with the guys early, if possible. Like if we have something early in the morning, just to be around them, so that the first thing they see is, us on them, coaching them, being about them, like making sure the focus is always on them.
Mhm.
Then from just a quality control coach perspective. I'm watching our run cut ups or anything that kind of transitions to the day. So if we're going against a heavy zone team in season, I'm watching all their heavy first, second down run game, what makes the most sense. Creating my own little cut up, my own little cheat sheet to kind of figure out, okay, do they have a tendency that we can kind of attack or whatever it may be, and then crafting that up to be queued up for later in the week so I can display it to the guys in a simplistic manner. Then from there, kind of prepare for practice. So start to look at individual. Okay, what do we need to accomplish today based on what's getting called? Then I prep my meetings, make sure my meeting's on point. I actually prepped the night before. I got this kind of the structure of the meeting the night before, and then that next day before the meeting, I kind of lay it out to what I want to actually get done based off of our defensive staff meeting. We practice, note take, get the notes to the guys, get the install rolled, and then we repeat that thing the next morning.
And back again. Yeah. How do you, so what's, we're talking a little bit in season two, but as you get to in season with your guys, what are you doing to set them up for success? Like to help them get better daily. It's a grind, right? We all know this, but what are you doing from, a practice plan, a film study, team building? What are you able and what are you trying to get done with your guys that's different than other guys across the country on a weekly basis?
I don't know if it's necessarily anything different, but I don't know, man. I think sometimes we try to overcomplicate football, overcomplicate what it means to be a part of these guys' lives. Like they got a lot of things going on in their life, and there's a lot of pressure going on. And I think the one thing I learned from one of the coaches I work with, my guy John Hanline, is pressure is a privilege. So I kind of stressed that. I've stolen that from him and stressed that to those guys is, hey, man, we're going to put you guys under a lot of pressure during the week so that you have the success on Saturday. And so the thing that I've leaned on more than anything to overcome the pressures is great unity in the room. So our goals every week to obviously, want to stop guys getting over 100 yards rushing. And so we kind of go over the goal of the week. And then obviously for us, if we had a successful game, right? So my wife does a really good job of we got them sack brownies or sack cookies. So that kind of like fun environmental thing of like, all right, we got some success in this room. These are the guys highlighted for the level of success.
Sure.
Really just a lot of it is just building on the camaraderie of the room. I think football is way too difficult for guys to think they're going to go out and do this thing individually. So really just lean on getting those guys together as much as possible, being a part of each other's room. From a actual football application perspective, I try to get them as much clear tape as possible of what we did really well versus what we didn't do well, and then cut up the tape as much as possible to kind of compare what those guys are going to see in the game. So whether it's a scout card, a couple scout card clips queued up with from practice to their game rep to teams successfully doing things against them against that particular look versus teams struggling, and how do we fit in that mold? Just really creating cutups for visualization of success. So I don't want to make life easy for these guys because you play defensive tackle, it's not easy. And you got to have a different mindset. But I want to give them tools of success to give them the confidence to go out and execute.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you said, it's not easy to play the position, defensive line, period. When you're recruiting guys, what are you looking for? And from a high school standpoint first, because that's obviously gonna be different than what you're doing on the transfer level. But from a high school perspective, what are you looking for outside of the obvious things? What are you looking for, and how do you build relationships on that level?
I think the biggest thing I'm looking for is just obviously a violent person. Not necessarily violent outside the game, but more
Right.
so a person that's able to turn it on and turn it off. Be super violent, athletic, active, and someone which I think is an underrated trait as it pertains to specifically defensive tackles, guys that want to play inside or don't mind playing inside or have that hunger to want to grit against what it means to play inside. So those two things got a checkpoint for me there. The other thing, and I tell recruits in my first conversation I have with them, I said, hey, I'm going to spend, if I get 80 hours of real life if I have 80 hours in total to spend on a week, I'm going to spend probably 60 of it at football. So if I'm going to spend 60 hours with you away from my wife and family, and I love hanging around with them, and that's the most important aspect of my life, I want to make sure I'm around somebody that I actually want to be around. And so you got to be a good person. You got to be somebody that I want to be around, and I got to be somebody you want to be around. So if you can't check that box, I don't care how good you are. You're not going to make me miserable at this job. So yeah, I got to like you a little bit, so that we can get this thing rolling. But Yeah, I want people to actually love playing football and want to take this thing as far as they can. I think you get a different level of motivation and ability to execute when guys want to continue to play football. If this is their final destination, this is about as good as they want to go. That's great, but I'm not interested in guys that want to stop in college. I want you to get to college and figure out, okay, maybe I can't continue to play, but I'm gonna try and figure it out and let somebody else figure out if I can't play at this level, at the next level. So
Yep.
I want that level of motivation when I look at high school recruits.
You got guys going there, and then they're the MVP of the NFL.
Yeah,
It can happen.
it could happen.
How different from a transfer perspective is your process? Now, obviously, from a timing, that's the obvious piece of it. Your
Hmm.
timing is going to be cut down. But how has your process been? And I know, obviously, at Air Force, you're not doing a ton of that kind of thing. But how do you want to be recruiting guys moving forward on the transfer portal kind of guys?
I think the biggest thing for us is relationships out of the portal. You got to know. For me, the things that I hit on, I either got to know you, but I had to have known you before, meaning I recruited you at some point. I got to know your high school coach, or I got to know your college coach. If I have zero connection to you, other than the fact that you're a really phenomenal athlete, like your character background check has to check out fairly clean. And I'm going to dig as much as possible because I feel like as I talk about my room now, I feel like we got a really strong room with a really good group of guys. And the worst thing I want to do is bring in someone and disrupt that culture, and also the whole team wide culture. So really, for me, is I gotta know you. Like I think that's huge. If I don't know you, then I gotta check and make sure that your character checks out the right way. Because it's the worst thing you can do is bring in talent with no character, because you're going to crumble a team. So those are the big things that I hit on. And then obviously, guys having to pass the buck of looking the part and playing the part and all that deal.
Right,
But that's
right,
that's
yeah.
the least important thing out of the portal, honestly. You can find talent anywhere, but all talent isn't good talent for you.
Hmm. No doubt. And like you said, when you have a good culture in the room to bring in someone who's not that, which
Yeah.
happens a lot of places, is that can ruin your room like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Absolutely.
Last one before we get out of here. With what you've done over the last 8, 9 years as a coach, what are things you want to continue to improve upon and continue to grow in yourself personally from a coach perspective?
I just want to continue to expand my football knowledge. I think I have a pretty strong foundation of what it means to run up front and play in the front seven and do some of those deals. And I just want to continue to expand my whole football knowledge as a coach. I also want to continue to make sure that even with the craziness of the portal, the craziness of sometimes being in transition of a job, which I just went through, that I don't lose sight of why I actually got into coaching, which is about these guys. So
Mhm.
when all the bullets get to flying and everything gets chaotic in this industry, and we all look at all the rules and go, "Why are we doing this?" and all this things we can complain about, I never want to lose sight of why I actually started coaching. And I told my wife a long time ago, like the day that I stop doing this the right way is the day I'll retire. So if that means this year I go through this thing and I am completely different than how I've been all nine years of my career, then it's time for me to go do something else because it's too imperative. We're in such a crucial part of this development of these guys' lives for us to be incredibly selfish or just not living up to the proper standard. And so that's important to me more than anything. Like I think, yeah, obviously got to be the best coach I can be and grow, but just as a man, it's just the way you live your life and the way that you present yourself to your guys is more important than anything. Because that's what's going to be a lasting impact 20 years from now when they call you and tell you thank you for what you did. It ain't because you told them how to play a double team. It's far bigger than football.
No doubt. And I think, like you said, a lot of guys can lose sight of that.
Yeah.
I think the guys that don't are the ones that do leave the lasting impact on that young dude. I'm thinking, as you said that, I was thinking of two guys right away that coached me and had nothing to do with backpedaling or coming up and making a tackle as a corner, like nothing at all.
No, my favorite coach, one of my favorite coaches ever is my D line coach in college, and I love that dude. That's one of my favorite people. So, and then you tell 18-year-old me that, I'll be like, man, you lying out of your mind. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love that dude. He did a lot for me. So like that type of impact is what I kind of want to have on my guys as I move forward.
Well, good. I'm sure you will continue to do that. And I appreciate the time today. Thank you.